My name is Dorah Kgotse, and I won the Public and Private Sector Procurement Project in 2023. I remember that moment, that I got shortlisted for the award I won, which is the Private and Public Sector Procurement Project. But I was actually shortlisted for 3. I was nominated in 3 categories. And I could not believe I had won from that day onwards. The actual award was just the cherry on top. But for me, just being recognized by being nominated amongst the best was good enough for me. And I was about to get into a meeting. And I remember being so excited that I couldn't concentrate. And I had just joined a new organization at the time. And, having to share that moment with them made them realize that this was a good recruitment, by the way. Because this is a nominee, in procurement, where the industry is not only in South Africa, but in Africa. So it means I was recognized among the best in Africa. And that was enough. It elevated who I was. I didn't have to talk much about who Dorah is to this new organization that I just joined. And it really gave the respect, man. I got the respect from day one because they knew that they've just acquired a talent that many people contributed to that talent. And it was just a happy moment for me, a very proud moment. I phoned my mom, I phoned my family, my husband. It was a proud moment. It was enough for us. It was just enough. This award in particular, it being Public and Private Sector Procurement Project, it's because my function at National Treasury at the time as a director, transversal contract, required that we procure on behalf of organs of state in South Africa, be it in municipalities, be it SOEs, be it national or provincial departments. And it required first a collaborator, because you're dealing with multiple cross-functional teams that come in different shapes and forms. And it required to have that skill of being able to lead multitudes of people to a collective outcome. It further needed that we also identify critical stakeholders in the sector of the project in question was a strategic sourcing of how government can procure clothing and textile and footwear in government in a way that it touches not only on just procuring and people wearing uniform or having linen in hospitals or school kids having uniform that is not written made in China, but made in South Africa. That was the main goal, to make sure that we will reignite the sector that was taken over by imports, taken over by cheap labor, taken over by grossly overpricing of things that were not even giving back to the country. So we needed to make sure that manufacturing plants are reignited. They create jobs in South Africa. Manufacturing in the clothing sector, the fabrics are made local. In that way, we made sure that the socio-economic objectives of the country are met. So that's how exciting this project was, because it touched on a whole lot of industries in the country. We even had to have engagements with the labor union that represent the workers in this, that work long hours and underpaid, and long hours in a day of when they are working, but they may not come next day. So in a week, you find that people were working 3 days in a week. What kind of salary would that be? There were things that when we were doing road shows of trying to understand if this sector can still be resuscitated in South Africa and become a meaningful business, that you would see even the age difference of what that sector was attracting. You would find mothers and fathers, to the extent of even senior citizens who would still be working behind a machine. And the young ones are not there because it was not attractive to be can be a career path for a young South African. So we had to focus on how to build the sector back, because imports had crippled the sector. Cheap, where a buyer would just decide that they are buying this uniform, where it comes from. People would not really consider what is the ripple effect of the implication of what, as a procurement person, creating a purchase order would lead or give back to the country. So this project was intended to make sure that first we resuscitate the sector back, we create meaningful jobs that are 5 days a week. We attract the youth to the profession of knowing how to can become a tailor, or how one day you become a designer, and to look at the sector with hope of making sure that we would have those brands coming from the young ones, and not to also think it's for elderly people who have to take care of their families, and that's it. So it really touched on a socio-economic objective of the country. That was more exciting about that. And it involved cross-functional organization in government, your DTIC, where we would look for funding if we had to support small companies to resuscitate their firms which had closed down as a result of the imports that had crippled the country. So DTIC, your IDC, had to also, in terms of funding the labor market, that had to make sure that they attract workers, they represent them, they promise them these jobs will be catered for, they will pay their proper minimum wage. So we had to make sure that every stakeholder is involved in this project. And that's what was so exciting and proactive, and looking forward to how we can redress what the sector had suffered for a number of years. So a proud moment of that project, I remember in one of the SONA speech, President Ramaphosa mentioning that he's wearing a suit made from a local. That for me was like, oh, that's me there. I'm in that chain, because I ensured that those manufacturing small SMME, Gogo Dlamini from next door would have few machines and do uniform for a primary school next door, unlike just going and buy things from Marabastad and you end up having clothes written made from China. They would be made local, and that was a proud moment also for me there. Well, first we made it as a collaborative effort, as I have mentioned, and we prepared a strategic document that we also made sure that it was presented at the highest level in government, that it got the support from a government perspective, that will ensure that to somewhat all the departments will be told that for procurement of uniform across the board will be procured from this particular contract, that no various departments from everywhere will just be issuing tenders on buying of uniform, for an example. They would come and bring their quantities to this one, that the economies of scale is achieved. When you now have to go to a manufacturer and indicate that you will have so much quantities, they were better able to even plan for their own production processes by knowing that the quantities were that good that it will then translate in keeping the jobs. So that strategic document was supported, and it was one of the supporting documents of how we presented to when I submitted my submission, was that how the support and the buy-in from the critical stakeholders of ensuring that that project would be a success. And I left it, when I left Treasury, that it had attracted a whole lot of other end users which were generically doing their own thing. For an example, we had gained defense, which normally defense used to do their own procurement. So bringing those major clients in government that procure in multitudes of quantities in this basket gave it elevated and gave us a bargaining tool to negotiate better prices and so on. So I was able to demonstrate all those in my submission. Being nominated was good enough for me. I competed amongst the best in class. And seeing my name against their profiles and wondering, even if I don't get it, I went into that room after looking at who were the people I was contending with. I went into that room knowing that I'm a winner already. And that was good enough for me. And hearing my name mentioned, actually, it didn't click immediately. I was shivering. I had a rash all over my body that I didn't know whether to scream or to cry or to do what. Me having to walk from the table, it was a mission, because my brain was in conflict with, I don't want people to see that I'm about to fall and break down. But I also wanted to keep myself composed, that I can show those who bestowed this trust by not only nominating, but also awarding, that I'm that strong. But I was in conflict with myself. That's how, going through those days, I was just making sure that I don't, it was a proud moment indeed. But I had already had the inner peace of, I'd made it that far. In Africa, not only in South Africa, in Africa. And not only in government, but also in private sector. And that was good enough. That was good enough. But, the chills I had, it was something else. My mom was there. My kids were there. I've got 2 girls. My best friend, my hubby, was there. And I had everything. My colleagues were there from the new organization that I had just joined. They were there. And it was their proud moment also. that one of their own. And yeah, it was something else. One thing that I can say is it elevated me as an individual. It elevated the SCM and procurement profession to those who may be thinking that a procurement profession it's equivalent to a clerical work. You find in organization that SCM is still not yet accorded the respect that it deserves. And with that award, for me, having joined a new organization, they had seen it for the first time. I was called an award-winning CPO. It gave me that boost. It gave me an opportunity to be respected where people did not know me. All they knew is that this girl has won an award in Africa. And I did not have to sell myself, convince people to believe in me on what I would be advising them at strategic meetings, because in itself, they already believed in me by virtue of, because they did not know me. So it was a very contrast type of, if I was back in my organization where this project was emanated from, it would have been a different thing, because all people would have known was, this is our hard work and we're going to do more. I was not there anymore. I actually took it back to my team, by the way. I went to Treasury and I surprised them. They didn't expect me. And yeah, it was a proud moment, because I also wanted to acknowledge my team that I would not have won. It was not my award alone, because it was a cross-functional. Obviously, from a treasurer's point of view, it was meant for a bigger organ of state. Any organ of state who wanted to buy uniform, they could come to treasurer's contract. They knew is good quality, value, and everything. But I had to take it to the hands that worked on that project, which was the team that reported to me. And they had their own proud moment. But back at my new employer, it was like, who is this girl who just won an award? And yeah, people respected me. They still respect me to this day. And it just helped me that I did not have to work too hard to say, what is procurement? What is best practice in procurement? What is this? They knew that it comes from someone who had just won an award. It was a proud moment. It kept me. The trophy is so heavy that I live in another province. And I took it because I also wanted to show them that they mustn't see it in the pictures. And I had to pay extra at the airport to carry that trophy. It just shows the weight it had on someone's profile. It was equivalent to the weight I had to pay extra kilo at the airport. It's in my office. Everyone who comes there, it already tells a story. Before I say anything, it already tells my story. And that's what it did for me, winning the award. The impact of mentorship has created who Dorah is today. A chief procurement officer of one of the biggest SOEs in this country that contributes to the economy of the country. It takes me back to how I ended in supply chain. That I did not have any means to be in supply chain. All I had against my name was a computer course and my metric. That's all I had, having been in SCM. And I had great mentors, because I would not be where I am in the span of 20 odd years. That my peers, people my age, my colleagues that I started in their eyes, it was through those mentorships, people who gave me an opportunity to learn from nothing. I started in procurement as a trainee buyer with no qualification in procurement. It's because someone saw talent in me. It can only be a great mentor who will see that in a person without a paper that validates that you have what it takes. So it really started at a very early age in my career, in my life. Very young, I was 18 years, when one of the managers said, would you want to go back to do typing again, or you can come and learn here? In actual fact, I had started saying, if you need anything that I can type for your quotations, your RFPs that you are issuing, I'll assist. That's basically how it started. And that man, who was white, by the way, was a white man. Back then, it used to be called purchasing and management. It was not yet supply chain. It evolved over time. It used to be called purchasing PMM, purchasing materials management. Yes, that's how it used to be called back in the days, in the year 2000s. Said, no, you can come and start learning. Can you go and talk to your manager where you need to go back? Because the lady that I had went to act on her position while she was on maternity leave, she was coming back. I could have gone back to my old work. And I said, no, I would want to learn more. I would want to help. But surely that mentor saw something in me. And he mentored me from that with no qualification, no understanding of what supply chain is about. What does it even do? All I knew was to type documents, and I was typing that fast. That's all there was to it. So it started very early. And as I grew in supply chain, I also started studying whilst working. And by 2003, I'd already had my degree. And from then, I started improving. By 2006, I was already a manager who started from nothing. But I was a manager because I had mentored who were there to coach me, who were there to handhold me, who taught me the ethical standards of being in supply chain. What does it take? Honesty, integrity, how you behave in SEM, and all that. And throughout up to now, I still have coaches that I would call and say, this transaction is this. This is how I know you would have done it. Can I still continue with that? So I continued to have people who were there, who were willing to share their skills and knowledge with me. And all I knew is that I should continue making them proud. Little did I know that me continue to making them proud meant that I received the recognition in return. That has led to where I am today. Even for this job, it was a headhunting that I don't know how my name even got to those who knew that there is this young girl who can assist to take procurement in this organization to the next level. So I've been blessed with coaches and mentors, the best of the best. And I learned from various. Could it be behavioral competency? Could it be technical competency? I'm an introvert myself. You can already see, right? Not a camera person. I will do my things in the corner and that's it. But I also learned to be outspoken through learning from the people that were around me who pushed and kept pushing to the day that we are today. It was back in 2010 when I started having people reporting to me within procurement. In post office, I was a support manager, so I had various units that were not necessarily technical to procurement, but support structure to SEM, so more document management and so on. We were not yet dealing with the the core of what supply chain is. But where I started exercising my management skills on procurement was back in 2010 when I joined SARS. I had young graduates reporting to me. And I actually realized that that's where my passion lies. And it was rooted in me because of the opportunities that I also got, that I was trained from nothing. Ne? And it's easy to train the young ones than to get to people who will tell you, this is how I've always been doing it. So I actually thrive more where I have to deal with, I just tell a young kid that come, all I need from you is attitude and nothing else. You leave technical to me, I will teach you. Give me the good attitude, good work ethic, me and you will go far. And I have been lucky that those who came through my path, I look today, they have made good progress for themselves. So as you are asking about what do I think about mentoring the young ones, it's actually my passion to share with them what made me as a person, that it can be done. For as long as you've got the good attitude to it, you can become anything. I saw it with me. I see it with the young ones as they join. And I tell them, the excitement must not take you too hard. If you know that you are good in something, know it, but now there's a different environment. Humble yourself first. Be willing to listen and learn. And that's all you need as a young graduate. And I always tell my story to them to say, you are a young graduate. I was just young. I had nothing. Right? So it can be done. And that's my strength. And throughout, even today, my office is manned by graduates. I don't have an executive manager in my office. It's manned by graduates because all I tell them, this is how we do reporting. We do it in this way. Have inquisitive mind. You know I'll ask you this question. Already know what I will want. You do, you come, you can even send my EXCO reports sometimes, how busy I am. They get to be sent to Secretariat without me seeing them because I taught them how it should be done and I trust them. So you also build the trust and it just brings the best in them. And that's where I actually see my strength is in that. I think my next life would be in how coaching and training of what supply chain in public sector procurement mainly, because that's where procurement still lacks the ethical conduct. That's where my next career would be, mentoring the young ones and making them ethical procurement practitioners. Because corruption in SCM, there's always a corrupter and a corruptee. You would have to choose who you are and be able to distinct when you are being corrupted or when you are initiating it. So there's always a very thin line. And I'm always eager to say to my team, you must always know when you are getting to the terrains that you should not be. And that's how I always try to also bring honesty back, ethical conduct in SCM, because it's very easy to go on the wrong side in SCM. It's career limiting to be in SCM. You choose to be in SCM because you have the heart for it. Because those who don't have the will get to be on the wrong side. And we see it. We saw it in Zondo Commission. You see it in different forms and shapes. But it has to come from within. But it has to be rooted at a very young age on what is right and wrong. I always encourage that my team also first say, I am here. Because sometimes in procurement, we may not be recognized because our job in itself is a support function, first of all. Secondly, it may be regarded as bureaucratic, especially in public procurement space. So we are not always in the good of what the users would need or what the suppliers would recognize what we are doing. We always have to make sure that we are being seen as a role player, purely because we are not in the forefront of operation. It's the end users who decide this is the specification that I want and it must deliver this and that. So you always have to be conscious of ensuring that you educate even those that are around you what supply chain is about. So self-recognition is good because it starts with you. But also being recognized by others, that becomes the ultimate. Because you actually know that, by the way, what I'm doing, it's not that it's just me who sees that I'm working hard. People can actually acknowledge that I'm working hard. So it has that effect on people, on colleagues and peers, that by them seeing their colleague being recognized, they see themselves there. And in itself, it encourages that performance, that behavioral competency around your work, that you touch other people, that people will know when it's time to shout your name, they will shout it. So it has an impact of just rubbing off in a team, and it encourages that coherent way and collaborative way of working, because everyone feels good when they are being recognized. But you have to feel good in your own strength first. So I do believe and I do support that SCM needs to be recognized. We've just come from an era where procurement was at Zondo Commission just some few years ago. And that's what people will remember about supply chain. And if organizations like Pan-African Supply Chain Awards don't take this initiative, no one will. No one will. And it's a great platform where you demonstrate, where you share the knowledge, where you share the achievements, where you share where innovation is, where the networks are. You know, when you get to these platforms, the networking that happens there lasts for lifetime. The collaboration that then happens, you get to know how in another organization they dealt with a particular matter in this manner or form. And you take the lessons, you go and implement where you are. That environment is needed and is encouraged. And we really, really appreciate what the Pan-African Supply Chain does for our profession, because it puts at the level where it's supposed to be. And it shares the good. It also acknowledges the bad, because the bad is there. We are conscious of that. And it's about educating others what being a supply chain professional is, and encourage even the young ones that are joining the profession to know that it is a profession you need to be proud of. And yeah, we have to continue, and we have to support this organization to continue touching people's lives, because it does. It touched my life, and I don't have to say much. My work tells through that trophy. My work tells. And then if we don't have that, that's people will forever remember what was state capture about. And procurement was in the center of it. So these awards have a corrective way of showing the good that is still there. Being in supply chain, continuous improvement is critical. Continuous improvement in a sense that supply chain is highly regulated. It's rule-based. And a rule-based function like we find ourselves as procurement professionals is that it tells you how you need to behave. It tells you how you need to engage yourself in these procurement events. It also tells you how the Auditor General will come and dictate how you behaved. So you always have to be conscious of what the rules are saying. And sometimes it doesn't make us famous when you are from supply chain, because you are being viewed as a no, a stoppage. You can't do this. The regulation says this and that. So having to identify continuous improvement initiatives allows strategic thinkers to find a way to enable the organization for business continuity to happen within a very strict regulatory public sector procurement. And what I had to do when I joined the organization that I'm at now is that I found a very rigid supply chain. This is how we've always been doing. This is what the rule says. People were no longer thinking out of the box. The regulations are there to guide how we need to engage ourselves using public funds that are funded by the fiscus, and to do it in a manner which it is fair, it is transparent, it's equitable, it's cost-effective, and it's competitive. That's what is the main regulator of SCM, Section 217 of the Constitution. And if you behave just by that main regulation that governs what supply chain is about, the rest of the regulation still allows that you need to think within the governance structure, but think strategically how to use these strict regulations to enable business continuity, particularly where you find that the regulations comes from National Treasury, which is the regulator, yes, and it regulates all organs of state. It being national and provincial departments, they are not revenue generating. The same rules regulate state-owned enterprises, which are expected to be revenue generating, are commercial entities. And you find that you are locked into the same rules that a normal department that buys tissue paper for consumption by the employees of that department. Equally, when I have to procure commodities that will generate revenue, that will give back to South African economy, I'm still being told you have to follow this. So I had to come with initiatives of ensuring that as we comply to the governance structures and the regulations, how do we use SCM to be a strategic player to ensure that a commercial entity like I find myself in, it's a state-owned enterprise, one of the biggest in the country, is that it's a commercial entity. It needs to make money. Procurement to issue a tender, it could take 3 up to 6 months to run one procurement event. And business doesn't wait for you running a tender for that long. So we had to come up with initiatives of how to streamline our processes. How, whilst streamlining our processes, make sure that you still comply to the regulations. That when audit come, they will still find that you've ticked all the boxes, but you have done it in a manner which is efficient and is effective. We had to reduce turnaround time. We had to ensure that we issue procurement in such a way that it will target your SMMEs. It will redress the past, and to make sure that not same old big multinational companies will be the only ones who will be able to get contracts in big SOEs, but also to make sure that there is CSI initiative of those multinationals, ensuring subcontracting happens, and how you then make sure that even in the life cycle of the contract, they still benefit. They learn the skill, they also keep jobs, and they are also profitable within the big ambit of awarding to big companies only. So we had to come with initiatives of how we will ensure that the big companies, as they get these contracts because of their capital that they have, because of their experience that they have, but they also takes in your SMMEs in a developmental process. So those were just some of the initiatives that we had to come up with on how to also upskill procurement, how to educate the end user, what procurement is about, what rules we have to follow, so that they also are receptive to them, they have buy-in, and they also have interest on when you don't do it what the rules are saying, what is the impact of it. We had to even come to the extent of saying, as an end user, if you are going to contribute to an irregularity, please know that consequence management will come to you as well. So we started to do that so that they see themselves as part of this process, not only to come with a specification that will come with Dorah CC at the end of the process, because they've done it in such a way that only Dorah CC will get it. We had to, so those were some of the initiatives, SMME development, how to upskill our own people, how to train our end users and suppliers on what public procurement legislative regimes say we must conduct ourselves, so that they don't push back. Because all they want the supply, they want the contract. How you do it, in most cases, people in operations are not necessarily worried about that, because to them, all we do is just clerical work. So that educational continuous improvement initiatives we had to come up with has taken procurement to a better platform of where the leadership is conscious of the decisions that they're making that are impacting on procurement decisions. The people that are end users, they are now more conscious also on what is the expectation on their end. Where we are, you have to follow the same rules, but you are still expected to generate revenue that generate income for the country. And that's a very difficult process that if you are not in it, you wouldn't understand the difficulty of procurement professionals to conduct themselves in a commercial entity that must generate revenue, not for its own survival, but also for the country. Because without the revenue that we are expected to create, that's where South Africa is today. And it will take from us to bring it back. And we have to bring it back with compliance regime in it, with improvement initiatives, with educational awareness, so that we demystify the corruption that everyone else might be thinking. If supply chain says no, it means supply chain has another. So there is a lot of a need to demystify what supply chain is. And some of these initiatives that we came up with in my employ of 2 years now in this organization has taken us to a performance that they had not seen. Just recently we had a new board, and we were expected to do a presentation of where is our performance in relation to 10 years. The shock that we had to uncover, that in my first year of being in that organization, we were able to do not only meet the previous year performances, but we doubled it in the first year, where in the past they would do just a minimal number of transactions per annum, purely because tenders were taking too long. The bureaucracy that can be related to procurement people were just carrying on with no vision of what ultimately procurement's role is in an organization. People were just carrying on. Tomorrow is still another day. Tomorrow is still another day. So those were other behavioral and mentality shift that we had to do as part of developing these initiatives that SCM had to take. In the second year, we had surpassed a performance of almost 5 years combined due to the initiatives that we had developed. And it has seen results, and we are seeing results. The organization is seeing the results. And that was an encouragement and a motivation that in this financial year, as we had just started the financial year in April, people are more eager to even outperform what we did last year. And it was because of the initiatives that we created. The organization is in sync with, it's going to take time, but we are in sync in what is it that we need in procurement for us to do this at the time that it needs, the best price that it needs, the best quality that it needs. Our end users are coming, and they are assisting us to assist them to meet their objectives quicker and so on. And it was really an exciting moment when we closed our financial year, that we've made savings that they've never seen before. We have done more a transaction than it was ever seen. And it was then taking back to the fact that it is the leader who is an award winner who has brought this change. And it has brought change even from my subordinates, who are now looking forward to them being there also. It's such an exciting moment, but it is still a long journey. And as I'm saying, it's about continuous improvement. And initiatives are just that, coming up with SCM initiatives that will take you from here, have a strategic way of understanding what the prescripts are saying and how to work around the prescripts, that you'll still have compliance procurement events that would be free from audits, free from fraud and corruption. Yeah. Those who come behind will step on what the foundation has been laid.